The body on my gurney blinked. Not a twitch. Not the little lid flutter you can explain away with nerves firing off like dying fireworks. One clean close, one clean open, like it was checking if I was watching. My hands didn't let go of the rail, but my feet stopped moving anyway. The gurney rolled on its own for half a second, the wheels whispering over tile, then settled like it was happy to stop. The hallway lights hummed. Somewhere behind me, a monitor alarm chirped once and got silenced. I'm not a nurse. I'm not a doc. I'm not even security. I'm the guy they call when they need weight moved from one floor to another without questions. Transport, night shift, paid just enough to keep you too tired to have a conscience. The rules of the job are simple. Don't open bags, don't touch faces, don't ask what happened. You get a tag, you get a gurney, you deliver. You keep your mouth shut and you get your hours. That night the bag was half zipped because somebody upstairs couldn't be bothered. That's the thing nobody tells you about hospitals. Even the dead get rushed. Like the paperwork matters more than the person inside it. I saw the eye because the plastic didn't cover it. It was glossy, wet, too alive looking for a thing with a toe tag. And when it blinked, it didn't blink like a reflex. It blinked like a message. I heard myself whisper, "Nope," like saying it out loud would make it less real. Then I grabbed the zipper and hauled it up hard enough to snag the lining. The bag gave a little resistance, like there was pressure inside, like it was full of breath. The zipper closed. The eye disappeared. I kept pushing. My brain did what it always does when something doesn't fit. It started filing excuses as fast as it could. Postmortem twitch. Residual meds. Misfire. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe I've been staring at screens too long. Maybe I needed to piss and my body was interpreting everything as a threat. The elevator took forever. I stood there with my hip braced against the gurney so it wouldn't drift, hitting the call button like it owed me money. The doors stayed shut, the little arrow light blinking lazy and red. When it finally opened, the air that came out hit my teeth. Morgue floor cold isn't like turn the thermostat down cold. It's a different kind of cold, like it's coming from somewhere behind the walls. Like the building is storing it. The doors slid open on B2, and the hallway looked the same as every other time I'd been down there. Beige paint, scuffed baseboards, a few old posters about hand hygiene curling at the corners. Cameras in the ceiling domes, watching. Vents ticking. I started down the corridor toward intake, telling myself I'd drop it, get my signature, go back upstairs and pretend none of it happened. Halfway there, the bag moved. Not the whole thing, just a slow bulge near the top, like a hand pressing from inside, testing the plastic. The zipper strained and made a tiny pissed-off sound. I stopped again, my throat going tight. The hallway was empty. No footsteps, no voices, just the hum of vents and the distant clank of a door shutting somewhere in the belly of the building. "Stop," I said like an idiot talking to a bag. The bulge went flat. Instant, like something heard me and decided whether to listen. My skin prickled. I started pushing again, faster this time, because speed feels like control even when it isn't. Morgue intake is a little room with a counter, a sink, a stainless steel table, and a door that leads deeper into cold storage. It always smells like bleach and old metal, like pennies in a bottle of cleaner. Daryl was there, slumped on a stool behind the counter, phone in one hand, a cup of ice in the other. He chewed it like it was a hobby and a threat, jaw working steady, eyes half-lidded. He didn't look up at me. "You bring me another liqueur?" he asked. "Tag says you're," I said, trying to sound normal. My voice came out too high, and I hated that immediately. Daryl snorted. ER rushes bodies like the dead got meetings. I should have just signed and left. That's what I always do. Drop, sign, go. Instead, I watched him, because I needed someone else's eyes on it. I needed confirmation, so I didn't feel insane alone in a hallway. Daryl hooked the bag strap with one finger and dragged the zipper down like he'd done it 1,000 times, bored and mean. The sound of the zipper was loud in the room. The face inside was gray, mouth slack, skin too smooth from the hospital soap. The eye was open and wet, and looking right at me. The mouth was open too, and behind the tongue, behind the shadow of the tongue, something pale shifted. Not a normal throat movement, not the little sag of tissue. This was deliberate, like a worm turning in mud, like something sliding around, finding space. Daryl's chewing stopped mid-crunch. His eyes went wide. For a second, he just stared like his brain blue-screened. Then the throat bulged once. It pushed up against the underside of the jaw, stretching skin. The pale thing pressed, then sank back like it hurt us. Daryl snapped the zipper shut so fast he caught a pinch of his own finger. He didn't even flinch. His face drained of color like someone pulled the plug. He slapped the panic button on the wall. Nothing. No ring. No flash. No alarm. Just a dead click under his palm. Daryl stared at it like it personally betrayed him, then backed away from the gurney. His hands lifted like he didn't want to touch the air around it. "Get security," he said. It came out hoarse. I stepped toward the wall phone, lifted the receiver. Dead line. Just a soft hiss like a leak. The bag bumped again, harder. A full-body thump that rattled the gurney rails. The zipper strain sounded like teeth grinding. Daryl swore and grabbed a scalpel from his tray like a kid holding a stick at a dog. "No," he muttered, more to himself than to it. "No, no, no." I couldn't move. My hands were sweaty on the rail. My stomach felt like it was trying to climb into my chest. Then the morgue door opened behind us. Not security. Nurse Patel from ICU walked in like she owned the hallway. Not fast, not panicked, just purposeful. She had that calm face people get when they've already decided what they're going to do to you. 2 orderlies followed her, and I didn't recognize either of them. They weren't in scrubs. They wore gray hoodies under their jackets, like they didn't want to look like staff while doing staff shit. Patel's eyes went straight to the bag. "Zip it and move it to cold 3, she said. Daryl blinked like she'd spoken another language. "That one's not. Move it." Patel didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. Daryl looked at me like I was supposed to back him up, like I was supposed to be brave with him. I didn't. I just stood there with my hands useless at my sides because she outranked both of us, and because the eye had looked at me like it knew my name. Daryl did something that surprised me. He got loud. "Fuck that," he said. "That's alive." Patel's mouth tightened. Not scared, not shocked, annoyed. Like he'd made her night inconvenient. "It's not alive," she said. "It's reactive. There's a difference." It blinked. I heard myself say, and my voice cracked a little. That pissed me off more than the blinking did. I hated sounding small. Patel turned her head toward me slowly. Cold, flat eyes. "Do you want your hours next week?" That's how it works in a hospital when you're low enough on the ladder. They don't threaten you with violence. They threaten you with rent. One of the hoodie guys stepped forward. Big hands, no hospital ID on his chest. He grabbed the gurney rail like it didn't weigh anything. The other one pulled a cheap plastic restraint from his pocket, the kind psych uses when somebody's thrashing, and slid under the bag, threading it around like he'd done it before. The bag thumped again, angry now. The zipper bulged. Patel leaned in and pressed 2 fingers hard into the bag right where the throat would be. Not a gentle touch. A pin, like she was holding down a snake's head. "Stop," she said quiet. The bag stopped moving. Not slowly. Not settling. Instantly. Like a switch got flipped. My stomach dropped through my shoes. I watched her fingers. No needed. No syringe. No trick. She straightened and looked at Daryl. Cold 3. Now, Daryl didn't move. He stood there shaking, scalpel still in his fist, eyes forgotten. Patel nodded at the hoodie guys. "Do it." They shoved the gurney toward the cold storage hallway. The wheels squealed at the turn. I grabbed the end without thinking because if I didn't, it would slam into the wall, and I didn't want to be anywhere near it longer than necessary. My hands felt numb on the rail. Cold storage doors in that place were old. Heavy. They didn't shut right unless you threw your weight into them. The hallway beyond intake got darker the farther you went. Lights spaced too wide, shadows pooling between. When we got to cold 3, Patel typed the code without looking at the keypad. Muscle memory, like she'd been doing it for years. The lock clicked. The door opened. A wave of freezer air rolled out and slapped my face. It smelled like cold metal and something faintly sweet underneath, like spoiled milk sealed in plastic. Cold 3 wasn't full. It should have been. We were understaffed. The city was a mess. Bodies didn't stop just because budgets did. But Cold 3 had space, and the space felt wrong. Too clean, like it wasn't used for overflow. Like it was reserved. Along the back wall, under the metal racks, there were shallow tubs. Like big baking trays. Each one held cloudy fluid. Not water. Not clear. A milky, greasy-looking liquid that didn't reflect light right. In the fluid floated pale strands. Thin cords, like fat white noodles, coiled just under the surface. At first I thought they were 4 lines dumped there. Then one strand lifted in the fluid and curled toward us. Slow, curious, like a finger. My throat made a small clicking sound when I swallowed. I couldn't help it. Patel watched me notice. Her face didn't change like she'd been caught. It changed like she'd just decided what to do with me. "You didn't see that," she said. I laughed once, sharp and ugly. I'm staring at it. Patel stepped close enough that I had to lean back. She smelled like hand sanitizer and mint gum, like she'd been chewing through stress for years. The mint didn't cover the bleach smell. Nothing covers hospital bleach. "You want to keep working?" she asked. My mouth opened. No words came. Because what do you say when the choice is shut up or get replaced by somebody who will? Patel jabbed a finger into my chest hard enough to make me rock back. "Then you keep your mouth shut and you do what you're told." Behind us, Daryl made a small sound like a whine trapped in his throat. "What is that?" Patel didn't even look at him. "Clean up. Clock out. Forget." The hoodie guys slid the gurney onto a rack like they were loading a tray of food. One of them pulled the zipper down a few inches, just enough to look inside. I saw it again, pale movement behind the tongue. It pressed up against teeth like it wanted out. The hoodie guy pressed his thumb hard under the jaw through the bag, right where Patel had pressed earlier. The movement sank back like it hated touch, like pressure hurt it. Patel backed out and the door started to swing shut. The freezer air got sucked back in like a breath. Before it closed all the way, I caught a glimpse of one of the tubs again. A strand lifted higher this time, reaching. It didn't look random. It looked directed. Then the door shut with a heavy clunk that echoed in my bones, and the keypad beeped once, satisfied. We stood in the hallway outside Cold 3. Patel turned on her heel and walked away like she'd just checked off a task. The hoodie guys followed her without a word. Their footsteps faded. Daryl stared at the closed door like it might open and swallow him. His face was wet. Sweat or tears, I couldn't tell. "I'm calling the police," he said suddenly. His voice wobbled between anger and panic. "I'm calling the fucking..." "Who?" I said before I could stop myself. The dead phone? The dead panic button? The dead cameras? He rounded on me. "Don't do that. Don't make it normal." "I'm not making it normal." I snapped back, and there was heat in my voice now, because fear turns into anger when you can't run. "I'm saying, what the hell are we supposed to do?" Daryl's hands were in his hair, yanking like he could pull the memory out by the roots. "We tell someone. We don't just..." He cut himself off because the hallway camera dome above us reflected our faces back like a black eye. Daryl stared up at it. Then he did the dumbest thing he could do in a building full of cameras and secrets. He walked toward the morgue exit. "I'm out," he said. "Fuck this place. Fuck all of it." "Daryl," I said, and I didn't mean it like a warning. I meant it like a plea. Like maybe if he stayed, I wouldn't be alone with what I'd seen. He didn't look back. He shoved the door open. The hallway light outside flickered. Not the bulbs. The light itself. Like someone dimmed reality for a split second, then turned it back on. Daryl stepped through. He took 2 steps. Then he stopped like he hit an invisible wall. His shoulders rose. His arms went stiff at his sides. His hands clenched and unclenched like his body was trying to remember who owned it. Then his head turned, slow, forced back toward me. His mouth opened. Something pale slid out between his lips. Not tongue. A strand. Thin. Vet. It crawled forward, tasting air, and it kept coming like it had been hiding in him and finally got permission. Daryl tried to scream. The strand blocked it. The sound that came out was a wet, strangled choke. His eyes flooded with tears so fast it looked like he'd been stabbed. He clawed at his own throat with both hands, fingernails scraping skin. He grabbed the strand and tried to pull. It didn't budge. It tightened. Then it yanked him backward into the hallway like a leash. He went down hard. His head hit tile with a crack I felt in my teeth. The door swung shut on its own. The handle clicked. I stood there with my whole body locked, staring at that door like it owed me an explanation. On the other side, I heard dragging. Slow, patient, a wet scrape, like someone pulling a mop across tile without lifting it. Then a small thump, like something heavy got dropped into a bin. Silence. No footsteps. No shouting. No alarms. Just the hum of vents and the distant murmur of the hospital pretending nothing had happened. I don't know how long I stood there. Long enough for my legs to start aching. Long enough for my brain to start doing that bargaining thing. If I move, it'll notice. If I stay still, maybe it forgets. Finally, my lungs remembered they needed air, and I sucked a breath so sharp it hurt. I didn't run. I didn't scream. I did what people do in places like that when something impossible happens and you have a job to finish. I try to make it normal, so I didn't have to admit I just watched a man get reeled in like a fish. I grabbed bleach wipes from under the counter. I wiped the intake table. I wiped the floor. I wiped my own hands until the skin burned and the smell filled my nose. I wiped like I could scrub the moment out of existence. The whole time, my eyes kept flicking to the morgue exit door. It stayed shut. I told myself that meant whatever did it was gone. I told myself a lot of lies. While I cleaned, the vent above intake started ticking. Tick, tick, tick. Not the steady click of a fan. More like something tapping metal from inside. I looked up. The vent grate was one of those old ones with narrow slats, painted over so many times the edges were thick. A shadow moved behind it. The ticking got closer. Then, slow as a thought you try not to think, a pale strand slipped down through the slats. Thin as fishing line. Vet. It swayed in the air like it was smelling. A droplet formed at its tip and fell. It didn't splash like water. It stuck and spread on the tile, milky and slick like spit mixed with oil. The strand lowered another inch. I backed up until my shoulders hit the wall. My heart was pounding so hard my vision pulsed. The strand paused. Then it curled toward me, slow, not random, not drifting, calling, like a finger. My brain screamed at me to move. My body finally listened. I grabbed the metal cart beside the counter and rammed it into the vent wall as hard as I could. The crash echoed. The grate bent inward. The strand snapped back up like it felt pain. A thin spray hit my face. Cold. Stinging. It dotted my cheek and lips. It tasted like pennies and rotten milk. I wiped my face with the back of my hand, and my fingers came away with that milky, slick stuff. It clung to my skin like grease. My cheeks started tingling immediately. Not itchy, not burning. Numb, like when the dentist hits the wrong spot and half your face goes away. No, I whispered, and it came out like I was talking to myself in a nightmare. I stumbled to the sink and scrubbed. Soap, hot water, alcohol wipes from the first aid kit. I scrubbed until my skin went raw. The numbness stayed. Worse, it spread. My hand started shaking so hard the faucet handle rattled when I turned it off. I leaned over the sink and stared at my reflection in the stainless steel backsplash. The overhead light made me look sickly. My eyes were too wide. My mouth was pale. Then I saw it. Under my cheekbone, just under the skin, something moved. A thin line slid like a worm traveling under flesh. A little ridge, barely there but real. It traveled toward my mouth like it knew where the soft parts were. I made a sound I didn't recognize as my own. A tight little gasp. The line paused. Then it moved again. I punched the backsplash without thinking. The metal boomed and my knuckles split. Blood dotted the sink. The line didn't stop. My phone buzzed in my pocket. The sound nearly made me jump out of my skin. I fumbled it out with wet hands. A text from Marla, day supervisor. Can you pick up extra hours this weekend? Holiday pay. I stared at the screen like it was a joke, like the universe was leaning close to see if I'd do the stupid thing. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. No, that's what any sane person would type. No, and also I'm calling every news station and setting this building on fire. But my brain didn't go to sane. It went to bills. It went to the overdraft notice. It went to the rent reminder taped to my fridge. Itipa no. Then I deleted it. Typed sure. The sick part is I didn't even feel surprised at myself. I felt resigned, like I'd already been decided. I shoved the phone back in my pocket and pressed my palm hard against my cheekbone. Pressure. The line under my skin slowed. It didn't stop, but it hesitated like it didn't like being pinned. I remember Patel's fingers in the bag. 2 fingers pressing and the movement stopping instantly. Pressure makes them behave. That thought landed in my head like a brick. I grabbed a roll of gauze from a drawer, wrapped it around my jaw, and pulled it tight, tying it behind my head like some busted boxing bandage. It hurt. My teeth ached, but the line under my cheekbone stopped moving. Not gone, just still. I stood there in a morgue intake with my jaw wrapped and my knuckles bleeding into the sink and my heart trying to tear itself out. And I realized something that made me colder than a freezer ever could. Whatever this was, it wasn't new. This place had a system for it. Patel didn't panic. The hoodie guys weren't surprised. Cold 3 was clean and funded and empty on purpose. The panic button didn't work, the phone line was dead, and Daryl got dragged away without even a damn security guard running down the hall. It wasn't an accident. It was a routine. I didn't even clock out right away. I just stood there listening. The vent ticking stopped. The hallway beyond the morgue exit door stayed silent. After a while, the world started creeping back in like it always does. A distant announcement. The faint wheeze of the air system. The building pretending to be normal. I went upstairs because my badge and my feet were trained to obey. I told myself I needed to find Patel. I told myself I needed answers. Mostly I told myself if I stayed in public areas under cameras and lights, whatever had just tried to crawl into my face wouldn't try again. ICU at night is a different planet. The lights are dimmed, but never off. Machines beep in soft patterns, like music from a room you can't enter. The air smells like plastic and antiseptic and sweat that never gets to dry. Patients lay in rows behind curtains, breathing with help, bodies strapped down in quiet little prisons. Nurses moved like ghosts, efficient and tired. My jaw wrapped made my words slur when I spoke to the unit clerk. "Where's Nurse Patel?" The clerk barely looked up. "Medroom." I walked down the hall, and my eyes kept flicking up to the vents. Every grate looked like a mouth. Halfway there, my cheekbone throbbed under the pressure wrap. The numbness was still there, like a shadow. Patel stepped out of the medroom before I even reached it, like she'd been waiting in there listening for my footsteps. She took one look at my face and her mouth curved. Not a smile, not exactly. More like satisfaction. "You got splashed," she said. "It's on me," I said, but my voice shook even though I tried to lock it down. "What the fuck is it?" Patel's eyes flicked up toward a camera dome at the end of the hall. She didn't tell me to stop swearing because she cared about language. She told me to stop because she cared about witnesses. "Quiet," she said. Then she stepped close and pressed her thumb hard into the spot under my cheekbone through the wrap. Pain flared sharp like a needle under bone. My breath caught, but the line, whatever was under my skin, went dead still. Patel kept pressing, calm as somebody checking a pulse. "If you stop fighting it, it behaves." I slapped her hand away too hard. A nurse passing by looked over, annoyed, then kept walking. "Don't touch me," I hissed. Patel didn't look offended. She looked entertained, like I'd done exactly what she expected. "You want out?" she asked. "Yes." She didn't hesitate. "Then you do what I say." I should have said no. I should have backed away. I should have screamed help into the hallway and made a scene so big the whole unit couldn't ignore it. But my jaw still ached where the line sat, and the memory of that strand lowering from the vent hit me like a cold hand. Patel leaned in and spoke so low it barely moved her lips. "Right now you're infected. Right now you're a risk. You want to be a body on a gurney? Because that's where this ends if you start acting brave. My stomach turned. You killed Daryl. Patel's face went flat. Daryl opened the wrong door. He tried to leave. I said, That's exactly it. She cut in, and the snap in her voice finally showed. He tried to leave, like it lets people leave once they've seen. I swallowed, and it hurt because my throat was tight. So what? You're telling me I'm trapped here? Patel's eyes flicked to my schedule badge, clipped to my shirt. You're trapped wherever you owe money. I hated her in that second. Hated her like you hate a person who tells you the truth you don't want. She gestured with her chin toward a supply closet door down the hall. In there. Now. I'm not. I started. Patel's hand flashed and grabbed my wrist, not gentle. Her fingers were strong. She squeezed the tendons in a way that made my hand go weak. Don't make noise, she said. Don't make me fix you in public. The words did something to me. Not fear exactly. More like understanding. She wasn't threatening to hit me. She was threatening to make me disappear in a way the building already knew how to do. I followed her to the closet because my body decided survival before my pride could argue. The supply closet smelled like cotton and dust and that chemical cleaner sweetness that makes your eyes water. Shelves stacked with gauze, tape, syringes, suction kits. A mop bucket in the corner. No windows. One buzzing fluorescent strip light. Patel shut the door behind us and clicked the lock like she'd done it 100 times. No drama, just a routine motion. She went straight to the shelf and grabbed a roll of athletic tape, the thick kind they use for joints. She didn't ask permission. She stepped in close and started wrapping it around my jaw over the gauze, pulling it so tight my teeth ached. What the fuck are you doing? I tried to say, but it came out muffled. Pressure, Patel said. They hate pressure. They like open space. Vents. Throats. Soft tissue. She pulled the tape harder, cinching it until my skin tingled. They follow warm air. Moisture. Breath. You understand. I tried to shake my head, but the tape held me like a brace. Patel opened a cabinet and pulled out a clear specimen cup. Inside it floated a pale strand, coiled like a worm in formaldehyde. It was the same milky color as the stuff that had hit my face. The sight of it made my stomach roll. You keep those, I managed to say through clenched teeth. Patel held the cup up to the light, like she was admiring jewelry. We keep what we can. My heart hammered. What is it? Patel set the cup down and leaned back against the shelves, arms folded like she had all night. You ever wonder why Cold 3 stays empty? Why it's always funded, always locked, always maintenance? I stared at her, jaw locked in tape, mouth dry. Patel's eyes didn't leave mine. You ever wonder why the fire years ago didn't make the news the way it should have? Whole wings smoked out, wiring melted, insulation cooked in the walls. She tapped the side of her head once with a finger. Heat does things. Pressure does things. That fire didn't just burn. It fed something in the guts of this building. Something that learned the shortest way between rooms is the air. My skin crawled. I tried to step back, but there was nowhere to go. Patel pushed off the shelf and moved toward me again. Hold still. What? I started, but she was already reaching past me for a tray. Then I saw what she pulled out. A scalpel. Clean. Sharp. Like it was waiting there for exactly this. My breath hitched so hard it hurt my ribs. Patel looked at the scalpel, then at me, like she was judging whether I was going to fight. You want out, she said, voice low and flat. You want to go home and pretend you're still a person. I tried to back away again. The shelves dug into my spine. Patel stepped closer until the scalpel was just there, close enough that my body went cold. Then you do what I say. Open your mouth. My mouth was already open before I decided to obey. That's what scared me most, how fast my body picked a side when the knife came out. I tried to say something smart through the tape. Tried to turn it into an argument, a threat, anything that made me feel like I still had leverage. It came out as a wet mumble. Patel didn't blink. She hooked 2 fingers in the corner of my mouth and pulled my cheek out like she was checking a horse's teeth. Her nails scratched my gums. She smelled like mint and latex. "Breathe through your nose," she said. "If you panic and bite, you'll make it worse." I made a noise that was half laugh, half choke. Bite her? With my jaw taped like a damn hostage? Patel looked at me like I was a child refusing cough syrup. Open wider. I forced it, jaw joints popping under the tape. The pain was bright and clean. Tears leaked out of my eyes, because that's what bodies do when you stretch them past comfort. She tilted my chin up with the back of her hand and slid the scalpel in. The metal touched the inside of my cheek near the gum line, high up where it's soft and thin. I tasted sterile steel. My stomach flipped. "Don't move," Patel said, and there was finally something in her voice. Irritation, yes, but also focus. Like she respected the danger, even if she didn't fear it. I tried to hold still. My fingers dug into the edge of a shelf. My nails scraped plastic. The scalpel pressed. Then it bit. Pain flashed across my face and down my neck like a wire, yanking tight. Blood hit my tongue immediately, warm and salty. My eyes watered harder. The thing under my skin reacted like it knew the blade was a doorway. It jerked. I felt it. Not like a twitch, like something tugging under meat, pulling toward the cut like it had been waiting for a signal. I gagged. Patel slapped my shoulder hard. "Breathe," she snapped. "Nose." Now. I sucked air through my nostrils and panicked little pulls. The closet seemed smaller. The buzzing light got louder. The ridge under my cheekbone bulged, pressing outward, then slid toward my mouth. It felt wrong in a way I can't dress up. Like a worm, yes, but worse because it wasn't in dirt. It was in me, in my face, in my thoughts. Patel's thumb jammed into my cheek from the outside, right under the bone. Pressure. Hard. It hurt like she was trying to bruise me on purpose. The ridge bunched up against the cut. Something pale poked into my mouth. It touched my tongue, and the taste hit me so hard I almost blacked out. Metallic. Milky. Like pennies soaked in spoiled cream. It tasted like a bathroom drain and a hospital cart and the inside of a 4 bag all at once. I gagged again, whole body convulsing. Blood and spit ran down my chin and soaked the tape. Patel made a satisfied little sound like a mechanic hearing the engine catch. She grabbed a clamp from the shelf and snapped it onto the pale strand. The strand twitched, not like a dying thing, like an angry thing. It tried to retreat. Patel kept pressure on my cheek, pinning it, forcing it to choose forward or tear. Then she yanked. I felt it slide out of me in one long, wet pull. It kept coming and coming. It shouldn't have fit in my face. It shouldn't have had that much length to it. But it did. A thin, pale cord, slippery, alive, writhing as it came free, whipping against my tongue and teeth as if it hated them. My stomach heaved. I bent forward and retched into the trash bin. Blood splattered the liner. Spit foamed. My body tried to expel everything I'd ever eaten just to make room for the horror. Patel didn't stop pulling until it was fully out. When it finally came free, there was a tiny sting deep in my cheek like a hook unsetting. Then a sudden, awful relief, like taking off a too tight shoe after hours, except the shoe was a parasite. The strand thrashed in Patel's clamp, twisting, trying to curl back toward my mouth. It moved like it remembered the way. Patel held it away from me like you'd hold a live wire. "Don't lunge," she warned, and I realized she wasn't talking to me. She dropped the strand into the specimen cup. It hit the liquid inside with a soft plop and immediately coiled, trying to climb the clear walls. It slid, failed, slid again, leaving milky streaks like snail trails. Patel screwed the lid on tight with 2 quick twists. The strand kept writhing inside, trapped, furious, silent. I hunched over the trash bin, panting through my nose, blood dripping off my chin in little strings. My mouth tasted like iron and sour milk and panic. Patel wiped the scalpel on a gauze pad like she'd just sliced open an orange. Then she stepped close, grabbed my jaw with both hands, and peeled the tape off in one brutal rip. Skin came with it. My eyes watered again. I spit blood into the bin. What the fuck? Patel watched me like she was waiting for the exact moment my anger turned into helplessness. "Now you're going to clock out," she said, calm again, "and you're going to go home." I wiped my mouth with the back of my hand. My palm came away red. "You think I'm just gonna—" Patel leaned in. Her voice dropped so low I felt it more than heard it. "If you tell anyone, you won't get believed. If you scream, you'll get restrained. If you fight, you'll get sedated. And if you run, you'll get dragged back like your friend." My stomach tightened at the word friend. Daryl wasn't my friend, not really. But we'd been in the same trench. We'd shared the same bad jokes and burned coffee. He'd been a person 5 minutes ago. "You did that," I said. Patel's expression didn't change. "He did that." I made a harsh sound. "That's bullshit." "It's policy," she said, like that explained anything. Like the word policy could cover a man being reeled into a hallway by something living in his throat. My hand shook. I looked at the closet door, the thin gap under it where hallway light leaked in. I imagined ripping it open and screaming into the unit. I imagined somebody hearing me. I imagined security showing up, police showing up, the whole place exploding into accountability. Then I imagined Patel's thumb pressing my cheek again, but harder this time. I imagined the strand returning. I imagined myself strapped to a bed with tape around my jaw and soft restraints on my wrists, labeled agitated. Patel read my face like it was a chart. "You're not the first," she said. "You won't be the last. Don't make yourself an example. Why are you even telling me any of this?" My voice came out ragged. "Why not just—" I made a helpless gesture in my mouth. "At the bin, at the cup with the writhing thing inside. Why not let it take me?" Patel's eyes flicked up and down my face. "Because you're useful," she said. "Because you're quiet. Because you didn't run until you got cornered. That's a skill, whether you like it or not." Useful for what? Patel picked up the specimen cup and slid it back into the cabinet with the others. I hadn't noticed the others until she did it. There were more cups. Rows of them. Some held one strand. Some held several, tangled like pale hair. Some of the liquid inside looked cloudier, thicker. Some cups had faint cracks spidering the plastic, patched with tape. My throat tightened. "How many?" "Enough," Patel said. "Clock out." She unlocked the closet door. Before she opened it, she looked at me one more time like a warning wearing skin. "And don't be cute," she added. "No recordings. No calls. No heroes cheat. This building eats heroes." She swung the door open and stepped out into the hallway like we'd been discussing supply inventory. Nurses passed by. A monitor alarm chirped. Life went on. I stumbled out after her, wiping my mouth, jaw aching. Patel didn't walk with me. She didn't escort me. She just melted back into ICU workflow like a drop of poison dissolving in water. I stood there for a few seconds in the hallway, trying to get my breathing under control, trying to decide which part of me was going to drive next. Rage or survival. Survival won. I went to the staff bathroom and locked myself in a stall. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely get paper towels from the dispenser. I rinsed my mouth in the sink, spitting pink foam over and over until it ran clearer. I opened my mouth wide and pulled my cheek aside to look at the cut. A thin slice near the gum line. Neat. Like a surgeon did it. Still oozing. I pressed my fingers to my cheekbone. Nori. No movement. But the numbness lingered, faint and mean, like a bruise in the nerves. Like something had scraped me on its way out. I stared at myself in the mirror and tried to match my reflection to what had just happened. My eyes looked too normal. That's the mindfuck of a hospital. You can witness something impossible and then step into a brightly lit bathroom with a wash your hands poster, and suddenly you feel crazy for even considering reality might be broken. I leaned forward and whispered to myself, "You saw it. You felt it. You're not insane." My voice sounded wrong in that little room. Too small. I pulled my phone out with wet hands and opened the camera. Then I froze. Patel's words hit me again. No recordings. No calls. Not as a superstition. As a threat. I stared at the screen anyway, thumb hovering, trying to decide if I had the guts to do the one thing that could make it real for someone else. The light in the bathroom flickered once. Just once. My phone screen glitched, static rippling across the image like a bad signal. I looked up at the vent over the sinks. The slats were dark. Still, but I could hear a faint ticking now, far back in the ductwork, like something tapping a nail. Tick, tick, tick. I shut the camera app and shoved the phone back into my pocket like it burned. I went to the time clock, scanned my badge, and watched the machine accept it with a cheerful beep like it hadn't just witnessed a crime against reality. Then I walked out of the hospital. No one stopped me. No one asked why my mouth was bloody. No one asked where Daryl went. No one asked why the morgue intake hadn't sent its usual update. The whole place operated on the same unspoken agreement. If you weren't paid to see it, you didn't see it. Outside, the night air hit my face and felt unreal because it wasn't filtered. It smelled like car exhaust and wet leaves and cold asphalt, not bleach. I made it to my car and sat behind the wheel with the engine off. I could have driven to a police station. I could have driven to my sister's place and banged on her door until she answered and dumped the whole thing in her lap. I could have driven anywhere that wasn't under that building's vents. Instead, I stared at the hospital windows, at the way light glowed behind some of them and not others. And I realized I didn't know what floor code 3 actually lined up with from the outside. It might not line up at all. Basements never do. They go where they want. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Marla. Thanks. You're a lifesaver. I almost threw the phone out the window. I laughed instead. One sharp, ugly bark that sounded like I was choking. I started the car. The engine's vibration made my jaw ache. I drove out of the parking lot and hit the first red light. My hand still smelled like bleach no matter how much I'd scrubbed. The smell clung under my nails. It made me nauseous every time I inhaled. At the light, I looked down at my lap and realized my knee was bouncing like I was coming down from something. I forced it to stop, forced my breathing to slow. I checked my mouth with my tongue. The cut throbbed, but it was closing. Patel's work was clean. I thought about Daryl's head hitting tile. I thought about the thump like something dropped into a bin. I thought about those tubs under the racks in cold 3. The cloudy fluid, the strands lifting like fingers. And I thought about Patel pressing 2 fingers into the body bag and the bag going still like a dog hearing its master. Pressure makes them behave, which meant something else, something worse, crept into my head while I sat at the red light and stared at the hospital like it was staring back. How many places in that building were designed for pressure? How many straps, restraints, tape rolls, compressions, intubation tubes, oxygen masks, cervical collars, jaw supports? How many tools were there for pinning bodies down and sealing mouths shut? ICU patients aren't just sick. They're contained, kept still, kept pressurized, kept available. My throat tightened so hard I swallowed nothing and gagged. The light turned green. I drove. On my way out of the lot, an ambulance backed up to the ER bay. Its reverse alarm beeped lazy, routine. Doors flung open. 2 paramedics pulled a stretcher out fast. A bag on the stretcher bulged under the zipper like something pushed from inside. One of the paramedics, young guy, tired face, looked up at the hospital vents for a split second. Not the windows, not the doors, the vents. His eyes narrowed like he felt watched. Then his partner shouted something, and he snapped back to motion, wheeling the stretcher in anyway. The doors swallowed them. The ambulance lights kept flashing in the dark like the building was breathing. I drove home. My apartment was quiet in that dead late-night way, the kind of quiet that makes every sound you make feel too loud. I didn't turn on the overhead light. I didn't want brightness. Brightness makes you feel like you have to think. I went straight to my bathroom and stared at the vents above my shower and sink. Old grates painted over too many times. Slats like teeth. I stood there for a long minute, listening. Nothing moved. Still, I took duct tape from my junk drawer and taped the bathroom vent shut. Then I taped the kitchen vent. Then the little vent in my bedroom that I'd never really noticed before, but suddenly felt like a mouth. My hands shook less with each strip of tape. The action felt like protection, even though I knew it was probably pathetic. Duct tape doesn't stop air. It sure as hell doesn't stop whatever lived in hospital walls. I brushed my teeth until my gums bled, trying to scrub the taste out. I rinsed with mouthwash until the burn made my eyes water. When I crawled into bed, my jaw throbbed and my cheek felt bruised. I didn't sleep right. Every time I drifted, my brain flashed me that pale strand sliding out between Daryl's lips. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the strands in those tubs lifting like fingers. At some point, I woke up with my hand pressed hard on my cheekbone. Pressure, my body doing it on its own. I lay there in the dark, listening to my building's pipes tick as they cooled, listening to my fridge hum, listening to the distant sounds of cars on the street. I told myself, "You're home. You're safe." It was a hospital thing, a building thing. It doesn't follow you. Then I heard something faint somewhere above me. Tick, tick, tick. Not on the walls, not on my vents, in my teeth. I sat up so fast my neck popped. The ticking stopped. I pressed my tongue to the inside of my cheek near the cut. It felt swollen. I stumbled to the bathroom mirror and pulled my cheek aside. The cut looked closed. A thin white line. Clean, but deeper under the skin, there was a faint bruise-colored track like something had dragged itself along my tissue. I stared at it until my eyes burned. Then I sat on the edge of the tub and put my head in my hands. I didn't call out of work the next day. That's the other sick part. I didn't even consider it. Calling out means questions, means someone checking on you, means people touching you. Pressure makes them behave, Patel said. I kept thinking about that word behave like it was a joke. I slept in chunks. I ate crackers because anything else made my mouth hurt. I drank water and tasted metal. By late afternoon, the rational part of my brain tried to stand up again. It tried to tell me I needed evidence. I needed an exit plan. I needed to not be a coward. So I did the closest thing I could to brave without actually risking anything right away. I went back to the hospital, not for my shift, just to pick up a form, I told myself. Like paperwork could justify anything. Like I wasn't walking back into the mouth that tried to swallow me. The day shift lobby was busy. Families in chairs. Volunteers at a desk. Security walking by with that bored swagger they get when they haven't had to do real work in hours. I kept my head down and walked like I belonged because I did. That's how it starts. You belong until you don't. I went to the morgue entrance on B2 and flashed my badge at the locked door like I'd done 100 times. It buzzed. It opened. The hallway smelled the same. Bleach and cold. Morgue intake was empty. No darril. His stool was gone. His phone charger was gone. His cup of ice wasn't on the counter. The scalpel tray looked cleaned and reset like the room had never been used. There was no sign of struggle. No smear. No blood. Just normal. I walked to the morgue exit door where I'd last seen him. I stared at it until my eyes watered. Then I tried the handle. Locked. It hadn't been locked that night. Daryl had shoved it open like it was nothing. Now it didn't budge. I checked the wall phone. Dial tone. I checked the panic button. It lit up when I pressed it. A tiny red light blinked like it had always worked. My hands went cold. I stood there in that clean little room and felt myself unravel because the building wasn't just hiding a monster. It was rewriting the environment. It was correcting the story. I heard footsteps behind me and spun around. A different morgue tech stood in the doorway. Older guy, thick glasses, mustache like a tired caterpillar. He looked at me like I was in his way. "Can I help you?" he asked. I swallowed. My mouth hurt. "Where's Daryl?" The tech frowned. "Daryl who?" "You know." I gestured at the counter. "Night tech. Choose ice." Phone always in his hand. The tech's expression didn't shift into recognition. It shifted into irritation. "We don't have a Daryl on nights. It's been me and Kendra for months." My pulse hammered. "No, he was here last night." The tech leaned on the doorframe and crossed his arms. "I was here last night." It was so casually said, like a fact that ended the conversation. My brain tried to push back. "Then who?" The tech cut me off. "If you're looking for a body, intake goes through Central. If you're looking for gossip, try the cafeteria." He turned and walked away. I stood there in the intake room, staring at the clean counter and felt something heavy settle in my gut. It wasn't just that Daryl was gone. It was that the hospital had room in its reality to erase him. I backed out of the morgue and let the door shut behind me. The lock clicked, satisfied. Upstairs, I found Patel by pure instinct. She was at a computer station, charting, posture perfect, hair pulled back, face calm. She looked like every other competent ICU nurse until she lifted her eyes and saw me. She didn't look surprised. She looked amused, like I'd done exactly what she expected. "You came back," she said. "I'm not scheduled," I said. Patel's fingers kept moving on the keyboard. "You're still breathing. That's a schedule." I stepped closer, keeping my voice low. "Where's Daryl?" Patel's eyes flicked to my mouth like she could still taste the blood. There was no Daryl. I felt something snap inside me. "Don't do that. Don't gaslight me." I watched him. Patel finally stopped typing. She turned her chair toward me slowly, like she had time to enjoy it. "You watched something," she said. "Your brain put a name on it. Your brain loves names. Names make chaos manageable." I clenched my fists. He was real. Patel shrugged like reality was optional. "He's not on payroll." My skin prickled. "You're telling me you can erase people?" Patel leaned forward slightly, just enough to make the threat feel intimate. "I'm telling you the building keeps what it needs and discards what it doesn't." A nurse pushed a med cart past us. Patel smiled at her, warm and normal. The nurse smiled back and kept moving. Then Patel's smile disappeared when the cart was gone. "Did you record anything?" she asked. I hesitated. Patel's eyes narrowed, and I remembered how the bathroom light flickered when I opened the camera. "No," I said. Patel nodded once, satisfied. "Good. What is it?" I asked again because I couldn't stop, because my brain needed a shape to hate. "Were those strands?" Patel's gaze drifted up to the ceiling vent over the nurse's station. "They're hungry," she said. "They're patient. They're old enough to learn." "Learn what?" Patel looked back at me. "That the easiest way out of the walls is through a throat." My mouth went dry. "So what now?" Patel's voice stayed flat. "Now you stop asking questions. Now you take your hours and you go home. Now you keep pressure on the parts of you that matter." I swallowed. "You mean?" "Jaw," she said. "Throat. Nose." Her eyes flicked down my body like she was scanning for weak points. Soft parts. Open parts. I wanted to hit her. Not because she deserved it more than anyone else, though she did, but because anger felt like the only emotion that wasn't helpless. Instead, I said, "How the hell do you sleep?" Patel's mouth twitched. "On my back. Tire de here." She tilted her head like she was giving advice about posture. "And with tape," she added like it was nothing. "You'll learn." A voice behind us called her name. Patel turned, smiling again, and rolled her chair back to the computer like we'd never spoken. That's when it clicked fully. She wasn't just complicit. She was adapted. She'd built a life around it. I left the unit before I did something stupid. I went outside and sat in my car again. Same spot, same view of the hospital. I watched people come in and out of the ER doors. I watched smokers huddle by the wall near the ambulance bay, flicking ash onto the pavement like the world was normal. I opened my phone and searched for the hospital fire Patel mentioned. I expected headlines, lawsuits, something. I found almost nothing. A brief local report years ago about an electrical incident in a service wing. No injuries, no major damage. Operations resumed quickly. That was it. No photos, no follow-up. Like the story had been sanded down until it didn't snag. I sat there with the phone glowing in my hand and realized the building didn't just eat people. It ate paper trails. It ate narratives. It ate proof. By the time my actual shift came around that night, I had two choices. Walk away and hope the building didn't care, or walk in and keep my head low and try to survive inside the rules. Rent made the choice for me. I wrapped my jaw with gauze under my mask like it was a dental issue. I chewed carefully. I kept swallowing to a minimum. I kept pressure on my cheekbone when it tingled. At the start of the shift, Marla slapped a clipboard into my hand and told me we were short-staffed. She didn't look at my face. She never did. Supervisors look through you unless you're causing problems. You're doing ER runs tonight, she said. Try not to disappear, okay? She laughed like it was a joke. I didn't. I went down to ER, and the first thing I noticed before the blood, before the yelling, before the gurneys lined up like shopping carts, was the vents. ER vents are big, loud, constant. They push air hard because they have to. Infection control. Circulation. That's the story. Every vent looked like a mouth panting. A paramedic rolled in a stretcher with a bag on it. The bag bulged once near the throat. The paramedic's eyes flicked up automatically. He didn't stop. He kept moving. I knew that look now. Not fear, not even understanding, just awareness. Like you feel a spider in your hair and you don't want to admit it because then you'll have to react. I got assigned a transfer from ER to imaging. Alive this time. A drunk guy with stitches in his forehead who kept calling me a rent-a-cop. He tried to grab my arm. I pushed his hand away and kept moving. Don't touch me, I snapped. The words came out too hard. The guy laughed and called me a bitch. I didn't care. I watched his mouth when he talked. I watched his tongue. I watched his throat flex. I watched for pale movement like I'd been trained. In imaging, a tech taped the guy's head to a board to keep him still. The drunk guy started to protest, and the tech pressed the tape down harder. Pressure. He calmed. I wanted to vomit. Everywhere I went, I started seeing it. The way the building loved restraint. The way it loved stillness. The way staff language turned human fear into agitation, and non-compliance like words could shrink a person down to something manageable. In ICU, I saw a patient with his jaw taped shut, not for ventilation, but because he bit staff. That's what the note said on the chart. But his eyes were wide and terrified, and his throat worked under the tape like he was swallowing a scream. I stopped outside his room and stared through the glass. The vent above his bed clicked once. Soft, like a fingernail on metal. I kept walking. That's what complicity looks like in real life. Not evil laughter, not cult ropes, just walking past a glass room because you want your paycheck. Around 2 a.m., I got the call I'd been dreading without admitting it. Transport to Morgue. My stomach dropped like I'd missed a step. I grabbed the gurney anyway. My hands did their job, even as my brain screamed. ER handed me a bag with a half-zip top. Different nurse, same laziness. I almost laughed. I almost cried. I zipped it myself before I moved, dragging the zipper up slow, watching the seam like it might twitch. It didn't. The bag felt heavy in a dead way this time, not pressurized, not breathing. Still, I kept my palm pressed to the top rail like I could sense movement through metal. On the elevator ride down, the fluorescent lights buzzed. The panel reflected my face, pale, jaw thick under gauze, eyes too alert. The doors opened onto me too, and the cold hit my teeth again. Morgue intake looked the same as the day before. Clean, normal, wrong. The older tech with the mustache was there. He looked up as I rolled in and frowned like I'd tracked mud onto his floor. Drop it there, he said, pointing. I did. He glanced at the tag. ER, he muttered. Always. I watched his hands. I watched for boredom, for routine. For the moment, he would pull the zipper down and see. But he didn't unzip it. He didn't even touch it beyond the rail. He scanned the barcode, printed a label, slapped it on like he was labeling a package, then nodded toward the cold storage hallway. Cold 3, he said. My throat went tight. What? The tech's eyes lifted to mine, annoyed. Because that's where it goes. I swallowed. My jaw wrapped dug into my cheek. Cold 3's for. He cut me off. Maintenance. The word hit me like a slap. That same bland cover word. The same story. I stared at him, trying to see if he was like Patel. Trying to see if there was a person in there, or just a function. He stared back like I was wasting his oxygen. Move it, he repeated. I couldn't refuse without making myself noticeable. So I moved it. The hallway to cold storage felt longer than it had any right to. The lights seemed dimmer. The vents seemed louder. Every tick, every click, every breath of air felt intentional. When I reached cold 3, the keypad was waiting. The tech followed me, watching. I didn't know the code. My hands hovered uselessly. The text sighed like I was stupid. He typed it in without looking, same as Patel had, and the lock clicked open. The door swung wide. Freezer air rolled out like a sigh. The room looked emptier than before. Cleaner. The racks bare except for one body already inside, bagged and still. The tubs along the back wall were covered now with metal lids, like someone had decided I didn't deserve to see what was underneath. But the lids weren't tight. I could see a thin line of milky fluid pooled around the edge of one. I could see a pale strand pressed against the gap like it wanted out. It twitched when the door opened. I stepped back without meaning to. The tech noticed. His mustache lifted slightly with a tired exhale. First time, I stared at him. You know, he shrugged. I work here. My voice came out small. What is it? He looked at the ceiling vent inside cold 3, then back at me. Building's got a problem, he said like he was discussing mold. And the city's got bigger problems than a building with a problem. That's it. I snapped, anger finally breaking free because it needed air. That's your explanation? A problem. He lifted his shoulders. You want me to call a monster? You want me to pray? You want me to quit? He snorted. I got 2 kids. The words hit me in the gut because they were my words too, in a different outfit. I stared at the tubs, at the lid edges, at the faint milky seep. The tech stepped in close and lowered his voice. You keep your jaw tight, he said. You keep your mouth shut. You don't go sniffing vents like a damn bloodhound. You do your work, you go home. Daryl, I started, then stopped because I realized saying his name out loud might make me look crazy. The tech's eyes narrowed. Who? I swallowed hard. Never mind. He nodded, satisfied. Good. We slid the body onto the rack. The tech didn't unzip the bag. He didn't look inside. He didn't give it curiosity. That, more than anything, told me he'd seen enough times to stop needing proof. When we backed out and the door started to shut, I saw a pale strand slip out from under one lid like a tongue tasting air. The tech shoved the door harder, slamming it shut before it could come further. The lock beeped. We stood in the hallway, freezer air fading. The tech wiped his hands on his scrubs like he'd gotten dirt on them. Go upstairs, he said. Get out of here. I stared at him. Why do you stay? He looked at me like I was slow. Because I don't have the luxury of moral purity, he said, and then he walked away, leaving me alone with events. I went upstairs. The rest of the shift blurred into tasks. Moving patients, pushing carts, signing forms, pretending I didn't feel watched. My jaw ached from clenching. My cheek tingled every time I passed a vent. I pressed 2 fingers under my cheekbone when it did, hard enough to hurt, and the tingling eased. Pressure. By the time dawn crept in, pale through the lobby windows, I fell hollow, like I'd been scraped out. I clocked out and walked my car on autopilot. I could have driven to a police station again. I could have done it every day like a ritual until it stuck. Instead, I sat behind the wheel and stared at the hospital one more time. An ambulance backed up to the ER bay. Doors opened. A stretcher came out. The bag on it bulged under the zipper like something pushed from inside. The paramedic looked up at the vents, just for a second. Then he wheeled it in anyway. That's when I understood this wasn't going to end with me doing one brave thing. It wasn't a movie. There wasn't a clean moment where I'd light a match and burn the truth into the world. This was a system, a building with a mouth, a staff with bills, a city that didn't want another scandal. And me, right in the middle with my jaw clenched and my hands smelling like bleach, pretending I was still a person making choices. I drove home. I taped my vents again. I ate soft food and kept pressure on my cheek until it stopped aching. That night, I slept with my hand on my jaw like a kid clutching a blanket. Sometime in the dark, I woke up with a sharp pain inside my cheek, like I'd bitten down hard. I went to the bathroom mirror and pulled my cheek aside. There were teeth marks on the inside, not from chewing food, from something pushing outward, trying to make space. My jaw still aches when I sleep, and sometimes I wake up with that numb, crawling feeling under my cheekbone, like a line tracing a path it remembers. That's why I'm telling you now and not when it happened. Not because I grew a spine, not because I finally decided to be a hero, because I keep going back. Because I'm broken, scared, and already complicit. And because I've started catching myself doing it in public, pressing 2 fingers into my cheek, hard, instinctive, like I'm pinning something down. If you ever end up in a hospital and you see a patient with their jaw taped shut and restraints too tight, don't assume it's just policy. Don't assume they're just agitated. Watch the vents. Listen for the ticking. And if you feel the air shift like it's leaning toward your mouth, clamp your jaw and don't give it room.